Welcome back, boys and girls, to the Audible Show. This is Dark Valentine 1984 coming right back at you again. This is going to be the second part of the stage creation tutorial for beginners. Now, as most of you understand from the bare bone basics of the first tutorial about three different types of backgrounds: still backgrounds, backgrounds with objects and items that could be detailed, and moving, and backgrounds that have a parallax-like effect. Okay, so with that part done, I'm going to move on to the second part, which is going to explain a bit about tile spacing, and actual velocity in the stages, so you can make your stages appear to be moving at a certain point. Pretty much like the recent stage that I've done recently, which was a big rig battle, and that stage by far so far is really my pride and joy, as I'll let you see for yourself here once I could get it to pull up. Okay, as you can see here, you see Shermie sit on top of the rig trailer on the stage that's moving. Most of you are wondering how in the world to get this particular stage moving. Now, for those of you who downloaded the stage, and for those of you who have Fighter Factory, you're going to look into this file for the stage and notice that there are only 5 layers, but all of them are cut. So you're wondering, how in the world did I get all of them to pretty much loop like they do? So let's go ahead and explain that part. I'll go ahead and close this. Now, first things first, you're going to open up Fighter Factory. You know, given that you do have a bit knowledge about stage creation, and hoping that you did look, read, and listen to what I said in the first tutorial about the stages, because what I'm going to show you is pretty much crucial. So go ahead and open up Fighter Factory if you can. Let me let's see here. Close that off. And let's see. We're going to go ahead and open up the stage. Basically, that most recent stage I did, we're going to open that up. I'm going to go ahead and give you a general idea of what I used and what I did to have that said parallax effect, or moving, looping effect for the stage. Now, we're going to go down. I'll explain it to you here. Now, as you see here for the stage, I'm going to highlight it. Z offset link 1. What this is applying a more realistic like feel for the stage. Like, for instance, if you're on a boat, or as you've seen the moving truck, you can actually set this to 1, which is the easiest. I really would not advise going higher than 1, but again, this is totally up to you, and you can do this yourself. Now, with Z offset link 1 set in stage info, depending on whatever ground you're going to use for the characters to stand on, you also have to add that particular number as well to that particular part. So you would scroll down to wherever your ground is in your def file, and for me it would be BG truck. So the ID number, which is going according to the stage info number, is 1. The ID number and stage info number have to be the same, otherwise it will not work properly. And for send Y number, it'll be 2.6, well, for me, in 100. This effect you have to toy with, what I'm going to highlight here. You'll have to toy around with this as much as possible, because the default normally is 150, or like 1 over here and 50 here. But again, depending on what you're trying to do and trying to accomplish with your said stage, you're going to have to sit here and at least go over it a couple of times just to make sure that it's bobbing up and down as slow or as fast as you would like it to appear. Because as it bobs up and down, it's going to move the characters up and down to give it that more realistic feel. Now, that is going to, now again, self-experimentation is going to be needed for this. So at least you can go ahead and put it the way you want. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is explain a bit about tile spacing and tiles and velocity, which is the other part of this tutorial, since the first part is pretty much self-explanatory and short. Now, with velocity, it is as it says. It's the velocity of the stage moving in the direction that you want it to move. You want to use a negative number if you want to move everything from a right to left motion, and just a positive number if you want it from left to right. And in the stage, I'll pull it up again so you can see it for yourself. I have everything moving from a left to right motion. That's because I use negative numbers for this to make this effect look as good as it does. Now, for those of you still wondering, you're going to have to repeatedly refer back and forth to the background tutorial to get a better idea of this. And for those of you just tuning in as to where this tutorial is, you're going to have to go into your M.U.G.E.N folder. You're going to have to go to the docs folder. Once I can pull it up, here we go. You're going to have to go to the docs folder, tutorial folder. If I can get it right here. And you have to go back to bgtutorial.html. So we're going to do that. And as you see for yourself right down here, and they say tile spacing. Basically, you're tiling a window or certain element. Like, for instance, if you have a single background, as I'm going to show you here, as I did say, it was made up of at least 5 layers. The black background does not count as a layer, so even though they say 6, I only used 5. This is the black background I used, but I'm not going to count this. Now, as you see, you can see it for yourself here. There's not much of a city part to this. Basically on a looping background. Same thing for the main city part that I used. Not much is for the truck since it was my main background. And same thing for the bridge part. So you're wondering how I got this loop. Very simple. You go to your def file, and right under mask, or basically any part of the background definition for what sprite you're going to use, you're going to have to add tile. Tile equals, or the equal sign, and depending on how many you want, you basically just want to use 1 for most defaults. Now, this is going to be your Y delta for the said tile, and X delta. What you want to do is, if you just want to tile 1 across for city, and you only just want to make 1 straight line for it, you can do tile 1 and just leave this at 0. It's really not necessary to increase the X delta for tile. For tile spacing, the tile spacing, what that does is, it's the actual space between the beginning and end parts of the said sprite picture or background picture that you have. Positive number spreads out the picture, a negative number closes the picture in, makes it loop upon itself. If you want the stage background sprite to loop perfectly, depending on what layer it is, set your tile spacing to -1. Depending on the speed of it, well, depending on how many times you want the loop or the actual appearances for the X delta for it, is totally up to you. For me, for city, I chose 200. Same thing I did for valley, and same thing I did for bridge. Even though it wasn't necessary, I just did this for my own personal pleasure. Now, velocity. Velocity, as you may or may not know already, is the actual speed of whatever background that is being tiled and looped through the stage. Again, you want to try to experiment with this as much as possible. Positive numbers tend to, well, it's better just to use a negative number for this, because if you're going to use a negative number, depending on the direction that you want it to go in, it's pretty much fine. If you want the velocity to go from right to left, you would use a negative number. Vice versa for positive numbers as well. Since I'm using a negative number for the city velocity, I just used 1.5 as the actual speed for it. Thanks to Shift B is B from M.U.G.E.N Guild that actually pointed this out to me that I didn't know before. As far as the bridge, as you notice, the speed of the bridge was kind of high. That's because I used a velocity of -12.5. Now, the higher the velocity, the faster it's going to go through the stage, but sometimes it's not good for recording. So if your aim was to actually add this in and then use it for a recording, you want to try and, you know, dub down the speed of the velocity as towards trying to, get it the way you want. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just do a little experimentation here just to give you a good idea of how the velocity for a stage would affect other stages should you happen to make your own. I'm going to use one of my previous stages here as an example. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Now remember, what I'm doing is is only for example purposes, so don't exactly do this unless you're making your own stage. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to open another stage here. I'm going to open the Station Slum stage, and I'm going to go ahead and find let's just say I'm going to go ahead and find the station part. Yeah, we'll say that. And then I say, for instance, I just added in what I just copied. Yeah, basically that. And then say, for instance, I just so happen to save that. Now, as you see, again, tile, spacing, and velocity, all three go together. So if you do happen to put tile, make sure you add tile, spacing, and velocity. But these three values that I'm highlighting here are completely up to you on adjusting. Adjust it to your taste and the way you want it done, and you'll get the said results as I'm about to show you. Let me walk over here. Now, it looks kind of funny though, but it is kind of funny. As you can see, you have the entire station going at the same speed as the bridge was in the Big Rig battle stage. That's because I used velocity, negative 12.5. But again, the speed of what you want done is going to be totally dependent on what you're trying to do for the stage, considering that you are making a moving stage. And that's roughly about it. I will apologize early in advance for those who were hoping for or waiting for the parallax to be added into this, but I have yet to get around to toying with parallax effects to try and get everything working right for that. But until then, this is Dark Valentine 1984 signing out.